In some parts across Kenya, a new battleground is emerging that has nothing to do with traditional land conflicts, but everything to do with invisible assets, carbon credits. As global markets for carbon trading expand, Kenya's vast landscapes have become prime real estate in the fight against climate change. Yet, the rush for green gold is creating winners and losers in unexpected ways. This is Earthwise.
Land is a very erotic issue in Kenya, not just in Kenya, in many parts of Africa, particularly when someone comes to the community and tells them, hey, listen, I need you to sign over this piece of paper so that I can have your land to do 1, 2, 3 things. And you see this a lot, particularly where carbon credits are concerned. Kenya has a law supporting carbon credits, guiding how carbon credits are happening, but across the country, communities are still resisting. And here in Oldonyonyokie is no different story. The community has gathered to say a very strong no. They want nothing to do with carbon. This is a meeting underway.
At Oldonyonyokie Group Ranch in Kajiado County, community tensions have reached a boiling point. A notice for a special general meeting to ratify a carbon project scheduled for April 30th, 2025 sparked fierce opposition from community members who claimed they'd been sidelined in the decision-making process.
Wewe kama mkazi wa hapa unaelewa carbon ni nini? Halafu umesikia kuna hizi projects za carbon mali kadhaa hapa Kenya. Ni nini unajua nini kuhusu hizo projects zingine?
Okay, for me, I understand carbon credit on a personal level. I think this is just a modern style of land grabbing. To me, that is my view about carbon credits. And when it comes to the pastoralism, that is our lifestyle here in the Maasai land. You know, it will interrupt our livestock mode of feeding.
Sielewi carbon ni nini, lakini kwa sababu alikuwa analipa pesa mingi, hiyo pesa ndio imeleta ushawishi mpaka watu wako wanataka kujua zaidi carbon ni mbaya ama ni mzuri. But hata kama ni pesa, wacha twende tupelekwe benchmarking. Unajua unazapewa pesa mingi wakati ukisha sign pesa inarudi.
Kage ngosho yenye jo bebo ndo abigana carbon. Mena ronga nageretie. Ngosho yenye. Ora ndoge na riga yo carbon. Naji lazima bege yao. Ora narani kijo kike karde. Kijo kike bas. Mingi lagana ora ni yuninju. Amma orgosa ile. Amma orgosa ke kidu. Orgosa ke kidu. Teningi la ronderi. Enegi la ronderi Oldonyonyokie. Nan lagi nege lagi lego. Megi la lofu. Nimigi ara la rabale le kai rungani. Kage ora rungani jogi yola sima bage yo kabul. Nigia na la rabal. Na rigi yo migi yo kabul. Migi yo ora na woki. Dire jo migi yo kabul. Ara rinyo.
The group leveled allegations against a company they claim was establishing carbon credits on disputed land that is currently subject to litigation in the Kajiado law courts.
Hii mambo ya carbon haijaanza leo. There are several times that these people have tried to launch this carbon credit thing. But out of all these members are saying it's not right to bring carbon right now. According to the register we have in Oldonyonyokie, the members register. The members that are registered are less than the people that are not registered. Where will these people go if carbon credit will take our rights? Where will these people graze their cattle and goats and everything when their land is taken? Nowhere. And that's why we are saying right today, we are not going to land carbon in Oldonyonyokie.
Tundema, umesema you don't want carbon right now. Does this mean that at some point in the future you'll be willing to hear them out and then maybe want to accept it at some point in the future?
No, we are not saying that we are rejecting it today and allowing tomorrow. We are rejecting as from now and forever.
On this 30th day of April, tempers boiled over, leading to violent protests that left a few people nursing injuries following a botched meeting to discuss the carbon project. On one side was a group that opposed the establishment of a carbon project, and on the other, a group that insists that the project will be in everyone's best interest, each group viewing the other with suspicion.
Na sisi hatuko pamoja na hawao. Leo walikuwa wanakuja kutulazimisha kuforce hiyo carbon, na sisi hatutaki hiyo project yao.
Wakati hawakuwa wanataka kutupatia hii agreement, so hiyo agreement tulijaribu tulifuatilia mpaka tukapata. So what worried us a lot are two things. Hiyo agreement inasema transfer of right. So I am not ready as a member to transfer my right to carbon credit company or to sell for future company. I am not ready myself to transfer my right. I am not dead. Another thing is the term of agreement is 40 years. Right now I'm 52 years plus 40 years. Those are 92 years. Where will I be myself? Yeah. What of my children? Where will they? How can they access my benefits? So those issues worried us a lot, and we said that carbon would not wait. Let us live the way we are till.
How much land is in question?
68,566 hectares.
Hectares,
Yeah.
not acres, hectares. So this is
Yeah.
the land?
Yeah, it covers a lot. It covers all from that. Can you see that hill?
Beyond.
The snow hill. It covers there. It goes around. You cannot see, but it is very big.
How much land do you have in this big 65 hectares?
You know, we have not demarcated at all.
Okay.
So we are still saying that the land belongs to us all, even though they want to list that. Our friends wanted to list that, but they don't have their parcel of land.
Sisi tukasimama tukasema sisi tutapitisha hiyo miradi ya carbon, atakawa watatoli zetu, hata wengine wameanza kulipa hizo tatoli zao. Ili ukijaribu kuangalia hao members, so 60% hawezi kujilikia sababu wana kazi, wengine wana sasa group anji wakapata na hii mradi ya carbon wakasema watalipia hao mashamba ile percentage watalipa group, watalipia hao vijifanya na watalipia wapyote.
Sasa swali, your agreement zote umezisoma?
Wamesoma.
Wewe umezisoma?
Mimi nimesoma.
Umezielewa?
Naelewa kabisa.
Inasema nini?
Agreement inakaa kwanza agreement period of 5 years. Hiyo 5 years ikipita, kama tutaki kuendelea na miradi tunatopa.
Kwa nini wale wanasema ni 40?
Hapana. Hiyo sio 40, lakini huwa wanajaribu kuwezesha watu wasifanye nini? Kuna wengine wao ambao watu waende community land. Na community land tumeita kwa sababu title zote ziko address ni tunatoa kila kitu.
Tueleze kidogo, mbona kuna hii vurugu, hii mvutano kati yenu nyinyi kama community kuhusu carbon credit? Ni kutoelewana, hamuelewani ama kuna shida?
Mradi wenyewe haina shida. Imetukuta tu kama sisi tulikuwa tuna tofauti zetu kidogo. Kwa sababu mradi yenyewe haina shida, kwa sababu tulifurahi mwanzo kwa sababu majirani zetu ambao tunapakana hapo Olkeri Group Ranch, ma community land, Shombole, Kramatian, washaingia maagano na hii kampuni ya Soil for the Future Africa kwa sababu ya hii mradi ya carbon. So tunajua mradi yenyewe haina shida. So ni tofauti yetu tu hapa kwa ground ndio zinaleta shida. Yes.
Umesoma hizo agreements zote?
Yes.
Benefits zenu kama nyinyi kama community, what are your benefits?
So benefits zetu, one, kwa sababu ya mpango ya malisho, sababu hii ni mambo ya climate change. So obvious hizi kiangazi za sasa sababu ya climate change imekuwa mingi. So vile wamepanga, tuko na grazing committees imetengwa kwa sababu ya kupanga malisho. So one, kwa sababu ya hiyo mipango ya malisho unakuta ni ngumu kiangazi tu hit sana, kwa sababu watu wanahakikisha mahali malisho iko hii mwezi ujao ni ingine. So watazunguka hivyo, na mahali walikuwa last month wanahakikisha nyasi haitakuwa chini sana. Ndio by the time wanarudi hiyo nyasi
Hiyo si vitu mnaweza kujipanga nyinyi wenyewe kama community na
No,
mkafanya?
zinakuanga. Zinakuanga. Lakini unajua zinakuanga, lakini saa hii tunasaidiwa tuweke into writing. Kwa sababu ni zile maagano tu zetu za kawaida ya kienyeji tusipita hapa.
Mnaifanya official.
Yes, so saizi formal. Hiyo ni namba moja. Namba mbili, hii kampuni ya Soil for the Future Africa kuna pesa wametenga kwa sababu ya motivate communities. Ndio by the time wafike stage ya kuuza credits, at least watu wameona maana ya hii mradi. So kwa hii ranch walikuwa wametupangia 17 million
shillings.
Yes.
Okay. Yenye mko mgawane nyinyi kama members?
Yes.
Mnamshagawana?
No, bado. Unajua hiyo ni pesa members wenyewe wamekubaliana tutumie kuwalipia survey fee.
Survey.
Yes. Okay. Kwa sababu shamba ishakatwa, so imebaki tuwapatie wenye shamba title deed. So walikubaliana hiyo pesa tuwapatie, tulipe survey fee. Yes.
Okay. Na carbon credits zenyewe, ningependa kujua mmeambiwa ni carbon kiasi gani mtakuwa mkipunguza kwa hii shamba yenu, ama hiyo bado hamjui?
Tumeambiwa, ingawaje unajua teknolojia ya hii kitu inaitwa carbon, kila mtu bado anajaribu kujifunza. Ingawaje tumefunzwa, unajua tulimekuwa na public participation hapa kwa hii ranch public around 2023 2024 na hii mwaka. Unajua ilikuwa tufanye maagano last year. So tumeelezwa. So lakini nimekuambia hii ni kitu
bado mnajifunza.
Sisi pia hata bado tutasema
hata bado hamjui ni carbon kiasi gani. Hamwezi sema 10 million tons of carbon, 30 million tons of carbon, 5 tons.
Ni ngumu tuelewe hiyo.
Okay.
Hata the reason why we are pushing for this project, tumeona ni project haina madhara kubwa kwetu na hitaji shamba yetu, yani physically. Unajua ni mambo tu ya hewa.
This project in Magadi is just the latest flashpoint in Kenya's complicated relationship with carbon markets, a relationship that's become increasingly contentious despite the country positioning itself as an African leader in climate finance. At issue in Oldonyonyokie is a carbon credit project that local residents claim was established without proper consultation, a complaint that mirrors dozens of similar disputes across Kenya's arid and semi-arid lands. In Isiolo County, for instance, a landmark court ruling in April 2025 blocked a company from implementing a carbon credit project after communities alleged similar violations of consultation requirements and benefit-sharing agreements. The judge ruled that conservation cannot come at the expense of community rights and ordered a complete review of the project's governance structure. Kenya's carbon market has exploded in recent years, becoming Africa's third largest after Tanzania and Zimbabwe. Projects now cover over 1.2 million hectares of land, with carbon credit issuances increasing from just 4.5 million in 2018 to 27.5 million in 2024. This is according to Kenya's National Carbon Registry. This rapid growth prompted the government to establish Kenya's first comprehensive regulatory framework, the Climate Change Carbon Markets Regulations of 2024, which came into effect on May 17, 2024, set out detailed requirements for carbon projects, including mandatory benefit-sharing provisions. Let's start with the basics. What are carbon markets?
Thanks for having me here. You know, carbon credit, let me start from there. It's a sovereign good. Sovereign, I say sovereign because it has to be protected by the governments that have those carbon credits. And for case of Kenya, we have made sure that we provide a liquidity regime to protect the integrity of the carbon credit. So it's a sovereign good. And carbon markets is a way of how we can be able to raise our climate finance to fight the global warming climate change issues, whether it's on mitigation programs or adaptation programs. So that is why we are in this space of carbon markets, and it's a new conversation. It's a new thing that we need to be able to take advantage of as a country and be able to tap into the climate finance for us to be able to finance our NDCs as a country.
So what would you say to the criticism that carbon markets are essentially greenwashing, allowing the rich countries to continue polluting and then so that you, the poor country, get to bear the burden for them?
That is not true, entirely true. And that is why for us as a country, the first thing, if you don't have a legal regime, a regulatory regime, then your statement might be true. But for us as a country where we speak from, since the advent, when His Excellency the President took over office, one of the critical assignments that they gave us as a ministry is to provide a legal framework, regulatory framework for carbon markets. And that we have done. In September 2023, the President assented to the amendment of Climate Change Act of 2016 to provide for carbon markets. So as we speak, we cannot, every project developer, every practitioner in the carbon market space must operate within the regulatory regime or framework that has been set by government. And there is laws, the law is very clear in that regard, and therefore then we cannot talk about greenwashing and all that thing, especially for us as a country. And that is why we are a pace setter in that regard for carbon markets industry.
Okay.
Yeah.
One of the criticisms from the activists is that we don't have, would I call it a right or whatnot, to sit at that table at the COP and call for emissions reduction from everybody else when we are benefiting from the pollution by accepting this carbon money.
So what we did was maybe to provide the background on the regulatory regime. When we did amend the carbon market, the Climate Change Act of 2016 to provide for carbon markets, not that among the laws of the Republic of Kenya, there was no law that entrenched carbon markets. So being a climate finance program, we then decided that we have a Climate Change Act that is running, and therefore we amended it to provide for climate carbon markets. And the carbon markets, when we did the amendments, provided that we needed to do 4 regulations. One was the carbon markets legal framework. The carbon markets framework or regulations that was sent to in 2024, and they are operational as we speak. We have 3 pending regulations: the carbon registry regulations, we have got the non-market approaches regulations, and then we have got the, so I mentioned about the non-market approaches, the registry regulations, and then now the trading regulations, which are largely led by the National Treasury through the CMA. So in that regard, we have a legal regime now that Article 6, which was concluded in COP 29, we were there together. Article 6.2 provides for compliance and the non-compliance market. And therefore, every person, project developer, must be able to transition to compliance market in this regard. 6.2 provided for bilaterals, and conclusion on 6.4, 6.8 were concluded in that regard. So the entire Article 6, which has been a big thing for the last various COPs, was concluded, and that provided now a proper regime for us as a country to deliver on the carbon market space. Now, where we are now as a country, we have a legal regime, we have the law, and we have the regulations. That is why in terms of how the project developers must do, we provided for 2 years a transition period for those who are in the non or the voluntary carbon market. Remember, voluntary carbon markets has been existing in the country since 2014, 2013, 2012. And NEMA was our DNA, who has been actioning those projects. We made sure that we cassette also NEMA as a designated national authority because of the experience, and because we need regulation as a regulator. Most of the designated national authorities around the world who have delivered proper high integrity carbon credits and carbon markets in that regard are all regulators. And with our experience as a country, we were very lucky that the NEMA had the regime, had the experience and the infrastructure to deliver that. So as we speak, therefore, then we have a DNA which is responsible for carbon markets. So every project developer must be able to comply. We have given, as I indicated, 2 years. By May next year, 2026, everyone must have transitioned in that regard to compliance or to registration or application. Everyone must register so that we know what's happening as a country. So with that regard now, the country is seized of all the project programs and project developers. Without the law, I would tell you we didn't know what was happening in the carbon market
So do we know how many projects we have right now?
We
how
have
many developers?
Yes, we have quite a number. Our database is talking about 300 plus as we speak, and they are now in the process. There are quite a number who are in advanced stages in terms of project proposals, project development, and we are helping them, providing the legal regime, enabling environment as a country to deliver on the same.
So these 300 plus that we already have, there have been so many a number of complaints from communities. We saw what happened in Kajiado the other day, and also what happened in courts with the project up north. About land grabs, community land rights being taken away because you're taking this land and giving it to a foreign company to administer on behalf of this land of this community for God knows how many years. Sometimes some communities are signing up to 40 years, and then they have no access to that land. They can't do anything with this land. Does the law say something about that to give this community more rights to their land?
Precisely. In fact, the reason why we amended our climate change to provide for carbon markets was for purpose of those complaints that we did receive as government, but we didn't have a way of how we could be able to address them. So one of the key things under the carbon markets regulations was to provide protection for the community rights. As we speak, one, for you to do a project, you must get the free prior consent, the FIPIC program. Or process. So you must get the consent from the communities before now you engage in a project. Number two,
what percentage of the community needs to accept?
We carry out public participation as if it is a community land, for example. CDAs, community development agreements, must be signed by largely all of the communities.
Okay.
All right, because it is not a matter, because you are doing a project in a specific area, like the way we do our EIS, you do a project in the or EIS on a particular land title deed or something like that. So if it's a community project as we speak now, and that's why on the case of Kajiado, that was a process of public participation, and other guys were interested in it, others were not. So for us as a country, it is our law is working, and the communities have now the right to be able to determine now. Earlier on, under the voluntary carbon markets, the communities had no say. It was the project proponent or project developer who will tell the communities what I am giving you. But we are saying, under this amendment and the law that we're operating on now, that communities will be able to say what they are. If it is land-based, for example, you are aware, under our carbon market regulations, that 40% of the benefits must go to the communities. And they are the ones to determine what to do with it. It is not you as a project developer to tell them what to do with it.
How will you ensure that this 40% actually goes to the...
It will, because we in the process, now this is a process that happens. When you come in as a project proponent, you just lodge in your project concept with NEMA, the DNA. They will give you, if it is a project within our, of course, we submitted our NDC, we know our white list, we know our carbon budget, so we will be able to guide you. If it fits within the regime, we now guide you and say, now, we provide you with a letter of no objection from the DNA. Then you go develop your project on the ground. As you develop the project, if it is with the county governments, then you need to get consent from the county governments. If it is with communities, you must get consent from the communities. And then in the process of development, if it is land-based, you have to have the CDAs. One of the documents that you launch as you submit your project proposal to the DNA for approval process, now being transmitted through the process, is the community development agreement signed by those communities.
Yet, while controversies abound, carbon markets have demonstrated positive impact elsewhere in Kenya. The Kasigau Corridor Red Plus project in Taita Taveta County stands as a success story, operating since 2009 across 200,000 hectares. It protects dryland forests while funneling benefits directly to over 100,000 people through community trust funds, educational scholarships, and water infrastructure projects. Along the coast, the Mikoko Pamoja project is benefiting communities through conservation of mangroves.
This is the first project on Earth to successfully restore and protect mangroves using the carbon trade. And the success of this project has given rise to Vanga Brew Forest, and now we are in Lamu.
Tutakapopanda mikoko kwa wingi, ndio tunazidi kuzalisha carbon kwa wingi. Sasa ni lazima tuipande, tuhamasishana, na tukihamasishana basi watakubaliana kina mama.
Meanwhile, Kenya continues to pursue larger carbon market opportunities. On May 2nd, 2025, the government signed a groundbreaking agreement with Switzerland to sell internationally transferred mitigation outcomes, also known as ITMOS, under Article 6.2 of the Paris Agreement. This government-to-government carbon trading arrangement, which is one of Africa's first, allows Switzerland to purchase carbon credits from Kenyan renewable energy projects to meet its own climate targets. Under Kenya's regulations, 50% of the corresponding adjustment fees from such international transfers will go to the Climate Change Fund, creating another revenue stream for climate action.
We have got the Sweden, which is coming again in that regard, and Singapore also in that aspect. So they want to partner with us in this process of carbon markets, and it's important for us to provide enabling environment. We have potential companies in Switzerland or in Sweden or in Singapore want to invest in sectors that I have mentioned, and as a country we will be able to guide them.
So it's not a one specific project?
No. They will be in those various sectors that I have indicated, which have, and for governments, because it is a government to government, we will be able to guide them on the sectors that we feel and that we have worked on our greenhouse gas inventory, that this is the right place to go. So that was a framework for collaboration in that regard.
And we still don't know how much money
Not
this
really,
deal is worth.
until when the project proposals come on board, which of course the first thing was to have this bilateral with Swiss and then with Sweden, with Singapore. Of course, we will be able to know in that regard what happens as part of the climate finance.
Okay. These traded credits, called the ITMOS, must meet strict requirements to ensure environmental integrity and prevent double counting. This means that both countries cannot claim the same emission reduction. Kenya aims to cut its carbon emissions by 35% by 2035, requiring 7.2 trillion shillings, which is about 56 billion USD. The government, however, can only fund 20% of this, but the remaining 80%, which is about 5.8 trillion shillings, must come from international support, including deals like this one with Switzerland. Would you like to interact with us? Earthwise would love to hear from you.